Welcome to Whispers to a Bride, where we talk about the stuff no one else is talking about. We are going deep on the emotional aspects of getting married, the stress, drama, and turbulence that affects your own sense of identity and your closest relationships. We are talking about what it means to be a bride and how to navigate this sacred time with more grace and ease. I'm your host, Kara Gassabay. As a life coach and therapist, I'm going to be sharing super practical tips so that you can not only rise to the occasion of your wedding, but also your life. Hello, and welcome back. I am Kara, and today we are talking about friendship fallout. Over on TikTok, I have been having lots of conversations with brides and bridesmaids about this situation that seems to happen a lot when you're engaged, you're planning your wedding, and then your friendships start to get really tense and even start to fall apart. We're talking people that have a big falling out, bridesmaids that resign, or just people that are you don't even want to have in your wedding anymore, right? You don't want to invite them on the bachelorette party anymore. You don't even want to be their friend anymore. And this can be, we talked about it before on this podcast, but I really wanted to go in a little deeper and just kind of think through some of the reasons that this happens. And again, somebody on TikTok was coming at me there's no excuse to get mad at your friend and not be supportive of her around her wedding. And I'm no. I'm not super interested in the idea of excuses. I'm more interested in reasons and understanding, because I think when we have a sense of what's going on, we can not only learn from it, but get that sense of closure. Oh, this is what happened in that situation. Again, we're not talking about a blame game or excuses or any of that. I think that friendship is a very important thing in life, especially female friendships. And so the more we can learn from it and understand it and grow from them, I think the better we all are, which is why I think it's important to sort of dive in. And I just wanted to kind of use this episode to just very broadly go through some of the reasons I think that are behind some of these friendship fallout. And one of the sort of biggest reasons that I've seen, and this comes from my client recently, is this idea of just the glare of the wedding spotlight can really illuminate parts of the friendship dynamic that maybe were not so healthy or not so useful, not so helpful, not so nurturing. And we're kind of done with them. And maybe we just didn't really realize how done we were until it was okay, now it's time to start traveling together for these bachelorette or shower weekend. It's time to spend a lot of money on these gifts and these trips and these dresses. It's time to show up with a lot of time and effort and energy and money and focus and have tons of, the whole group chat about the wedding and just hearing all the ups and downs of the wedding. And maybe you're just this no longer feels right? This dynamic, it doesn't feel like it's worth my investment of time and energy and effort and money and all of that stuff. It all of a sudden, sometimes you can feel this this feeling of breaks. You're you just really realize maybe some of the ways in which you're always the supportive one and this person never really asks how you are, doesn't really care what's happening in your life. That's the dynamic where you're maybe the friend of the bridesmaid, and the bride is always been a little selfish, always been about her, and you're kind of the supportive sidekick friend. The wedding dynamic sometimes just tips that right over the cliff. You've maybe grown up and this is just the dynamic that you're used to, but all of a sudden now you're I've met other female friends that we have a much more equal, mutual, nurturing relationship. And this one just feels very lopsided, kind of toxic and draining and lopsided. And all of a sudden you just find yourself being this is where this is where I'm at. I think that can happen so much. So just don't underestimate the clarifying power of the weddings, right? As much as we want it to be the time where all of our friendships are in picture perfect moments, it's the glare of knowing that you're going to be in someone's photos, that last their whole life and that are framed and just being named one of the like closest people to them. For some people, they're just, I that is not really a role that I want to have in this public way and in this like, wedding day way where it's sort of like is solidified and formalized. And so just think about weddings as very clarifying for the friendship dynamics where we start to see things maybe we had ignored or didn't really like let bother us. But all of a sudden, when it comes to the wedding, it's wow, I can't unsee it. This is if you remember that episode about I hate my wedding photos, what that bride really realized was like her maid of honor just did not have her back, wasn't looking for her. And it wasn't until the wedding moment that she just realized, wow, it's been a long friendship, but it hasn't been a very equal, nurturing friendship. As tough as that can be, I always think in the end, it's a good thing. It's a good thing when we realize things and learn from things and evolve, find relationships and people that are more supportive and uplifting. I have another bride who was having a similar thing where she just like, yikes, like I'm just realizing the energy of this friend is just not the energy that I want around me anymore. It doesn't lift me up. It doesn't give me hope. It doesn't inspire me. It doesn't bring out my best self. So, like, what am I still doing? And it wasn't until the wedding event started that she really felt so like, no, I just don't want this person around. Yet I always imagine them as a part of my wedding. So, again, think about the glare of that wedding spotlight being really bright, which is so fun, except that it also exposes some of these like unsavory characteristics and dynamics in our friendships that we're sort of forced to deal with. Okay, number two, one thing that can really start to cause a drift or a rift in our friendship is that your shared experience and your sort of commonality is shaken up, especially right. One person's getting married, maybe one person is living the single life. You maybe used to both be in a similar position. Your days sort of mirrored each other, your hobbies, the way you spent time, the communication patterns, what you cared about. Like it was very in sync. And now that you're going into this like marriage, maybe your lifestyle has changed, maybe where you live obviously is probably different. Like just things kind of start shifting the way that you're socializing or your priorities or your obligations now that you've got to consider like your partner and their family and their friends starts to shift. There can be a very natural sort of drift just in terms of like, huh, we're not like living the same life anymore. And if you look at friendships throughout your life, a lot of them have been based on like, oh, we're in school together. Like, we're friends because we're in the same kindergarten class, or we're friends because we take tap dance together. We're friends because we both ride horses. Like we're friends because we're roommates in college. Like a lot of your friendship is based on that shared experience. It's like not the only factor, but a very, very major one. It's just a common experience, a shared experience. And so when one person's getting married and the other person maybe isn't going through that, just the whole wedding planning world can just be very sort of tiring because it is so one sided. If it's just one person's whole personality for a year or even two, the other person just might be like, wow, I mean, this is just, I want to be supportive, but like, I'm just not interested because it's not something that I'm experiencing or going through or can relate to. Not that they're jealous or upset, but just, it's just like not where they're headed. And so that can sometimes just a very natural reason. Of course, it doesn't have to go this way. If you really care about this person, you guys can navigate this and you can get through this. Absolutely. But if that strong commitment and other bonding factors aren't as strong, this might be sort of what causes the friendship to sort of fall apart. The third thing is what if they just don't respect your decision to get married to this person, right? Like that can happen in a friendship where one person just thinks the other person is making a really huge mistake with getting married to this person. And it can be really frustrating to care about somebody and watch them, in your opinion, run into a brick wall. Like that can just make you really crazy. And there's this part of people where we want to be in integrity and we want to be like, have our actions line up with our feelings. So if you really feel like it's a bad idea that your person is marrying this person, you're probably not going to be the most supportive person. You're not going to be buying the dress and standing right next to them. I'm not saying you can't do that. Lots of friends are like, no, I really want to be closer to my friend when she's doing what I think is a mistake so that I can be there for her and support her through the ups and the downs. But another person might be like, I can't stand for them. Like, support it, participate, and like celebrate something that I think is a huge mistake. And I think that is just like a very real reason that often we don't talk about, but can be super, super real because it also just shows, again, in a really stark, undeniable way, the difference in maybe your values or your decision making or how you want to live your life. And that just sort of eats away at that commonality that is so important in friendships. Number 4, on a very different angle, it can just sometimes one friend getting married can really just trigger someone else's issues about relationship status, what they want out of their life. Maybe if they've gotten a divorce or they're going through infertility, so they're having like a ton of darkness in their life, and then you're having all this joy, it can just be like too much or whatever. So just remember, joy can be really hard for people. It can be really hard for people to rise to the occasion to celebrate when they are in deep pain because sometimes it just makes the pain that much deeper. I'm not saying that this is right. I'm just saying that it's a thing that happens and that people do. And just having some awareness and some sensitivity to it can be really helpful. It doesn't always solve it. Like if your friend just can never celebrate you and sort of participate in your joy in some way, like that is to me problematic. Like, that is no fun. In your own personal relationship, they say like the way that you express excitement, pride, and joy, and excitement for someone is just like, it's a huge bonding factor. It matters a lot how you respond to someone's good news. It matters, according to the research, more than how you respond to their bad news. So again, let's just remember that like, if someone can't be there for you in your happiest moment, like it might be worth relooking. And also saving some empathy for the fact that like when someone's in a really dark place, your joy can make it feel even darker for them. Again, that means they've got some work to do, but it's just always good to sort of have a little bit of empathy and understanding around it. That does not, again, like I said, it does not get okay. And it doesn't really bode well for the future. Hopefully it's a short-term thing that they can get out of the funk, but they might need you, their friend, to show them a little like loving kindness, which when we're in that bridesmaid role, if you quickly think you're being unsupportive, MIA, and so now I hate you. There's a lot. Maybe I should do another one on that whole point. But number 5, it's just the natural ending. Like someone's wedding can be seen as like a very natural, like off ramp to a friendship that maybe like has been faltering over time and maybe it's just kind of not going anywhere. But there was never like a reason to end it, right? Like it seems so sort of aggressive to break up with a friend for no reason. We don't tend to do that. And so I think the like slow fade and like fallout, the wedding can just kind of sometimes whoop, put the actual like close, the actual book friendship that was already coming to a natural ending point. And I think it's important to remember that that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's a sad thing. In a lot of cases, it's a hard thing. It's just like an uncomfortable thing, but it could be very natural to have seasons to your friendships. It doesn't mean you've done anything wrong or they've done anything wrong, but life can be taking you in different directions. It's okay. We only have so much bandwidth for so many people to sort of care about and manage, have in our circle. So it is okay if the wedding is just sort of the natural off ramp for some people in our life. And again, give yourself time to grieve that. It's sad, it's hard, it's icky, and it's okay. Natural. And it's sort of a part of things. I think sometimes people feel a little bit okay about sort of bowing out and gracefully kind of walking away around a wedding because they're like, okay, you're good. You've got your person. You've got a whole network now, new extended family, all like you have so much going on that like you won't miss me as much. Again, that might not be true, but I think that's a lot of times what people tell themselves. Like, okay, you're going to this whole new chapter. Like, I bid you farewell, blessings. Like, now it's our time because there was never like a great time to sort of pull apart, but the wedding can sometimes feel like, again, Some people read it as like the most aggressive time to separate and part ways, but I also think it could be the most loving and sweet and considerate time to part ways. So it depends on how you look at it. So again, if you're going through that, I want you to try on both angles, right? Like maybe what you think is like so rude is actually they're feeling like is kind of a kindness in that if it's going to happen eventually. Because this is what I don't understand. How many people get so mad when a friendship falls apart before the wedding? Would you rather they stood there and took those pictures and came and toasted and partied and went MIA? Like, to me, that's more aggressive. That's like, oh, I just faked it for the party. And now I'm like, yeah, we're good. We're not friends anymore. Like, I'm over it. I think that because there's just that it's not honest and it's not real. And just, I feel like truth and love are the same thing. And the more honesty you can have, as soon as you can have it, to me, that will always be the most loving thing. I know you could fight me on that, but that's just how I just, the fake thing to me is more gross. I would feel much more offended if somebody was like fake to me and I found it out later that like, oh, they were so not into it. Like that doesn't work for me. But that is what I want to leave you with. Just 5 things to think about if your friendships are falling apart around your wedding. And again, like I said, this stuff is hard. If you want to talk it through, get some understanding, get some perspective, get the lessons, get some coping mechanism, reach out, karamorning.com, book your bridal session. In the meantime, come over and find me on TikTok. I'm Kara the Bridal Coach. I'm over on Instagram, Kara Gasabay. And I should probably make those 2 things match. But spread the word about this podcast. Tell all your friends. And until then, I am wishing you nothing but bridal bliss.